Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. Go ahead and check out the Potown store if you're looking for PTGO codes, including the new stuff from Hidden Fates. Jumping into today's video, however, we are going to be looking at GreensReshiZard. Now, it's the archetype that did take a couple places in the top 8 of Worlds, and has continued to see success even in the most recent special event over in Melbourne. Which comes to my surprise, to be honest. I don't think this archetype stands up to the ability-based ReshiZard or Mew3 all that well. I think this deck works well defensively with the likes of Reset Stamp and Power Plant, but it does feel like there are some much faster tag teams out there these days, and that does bode poorly for this archetype in general. I think it may be slipping down the tier list from tier 1 to around tier 2. It still has all the tankiness, it still has the big one-hit KO option in the big double blaze for 6 energy. There are those things going for it, but for me, personally, in my testing, I've not found it to be incredible. But hopefully, in today's games, we can still show why this deck can be a contender, and definitely Power Plant is becoming more and more of a thing right now. I think definitely trying to jam that against people is a big deal, and it can be a great way for you to come back into the game. Where usually you are sacking early Volcanions at the very least, trying to build up big Charizards and then make the most out of those essentially. So moving into the list, we're going to have 4 Baby Volk. It has that Flare Starter attack, which is phenomenal going second. It allows us to attach 3 Fire Energy in any way that we like. Usually that goes all to the back on a ReshiZard. If you do go first, you can obviously use this on future turns just for 1 energy and whatnot. We do have High Heat Blast for 2 fire. You do 50 base, which is already enough to knock out Jirachis, which is super important now that we have Pikarom playing Jirachi, Ability Zard, Malamar. There's all sorts of decks playing Jirachi right now, so High Heat Blast is a reasonable attack if you need it to be, and it can also do 110 if you have 4 Fire Energy in play. It's not a super relevant number these days, but again, it can help you knock out other evolving basics and stuff, which is something to bear in mind. But usually this is just an early sponge that we do that can happily drop prizes, set up damage for different things, and you don't mind because it rarely affects your prize trade because you're going to still make the opponent go through 2 big ReshiZards. That's usually the way you're going to try and make the game flow. Obviously, ReshiZard's an incredible attacker. It's the front man of, an ability-based version, this version, and in Mewtwo, this is still a main card in the deck. So clearly his attacks are nuts. Outrage doing 30, plus 10 more for each damage on this guy is always good. Flare Strike doing 230, not quite enough to knock out tag teams, but can be pushed by the likes of Shrine and a few other methods here and there, which is cool. And that Double Blaze GX attack does 200. If we have an extra 3 fire, we get to do 300 damage, and we go through all effects on your opponent's active. So that's a really nice way to sort of be a wall breaker, and is always going to be getting a big knockout. So that's always great. From there, that's all the Pokemon. All the trickery comes in the form of our items and trying to make the most out of them via Green's exploration as often as possible. So we do have a couple one-offs, 1 copy of Switch. Obviously, our ReshiZards have a high retreat cost, as do the Volks, so that's a nice card to pick out with Greens if we really need to. 1 copy of Fiery Flint. It can go ahead and grab us 4 fires straight out of the deck and get us, set up for welders and turn attachments over the next few turns. We're going to have 2 copies of Reset Stamp. This is one of the, like I said at the start, although this deck doesn't feel great offensively these days, it does still feel like one of the best defensive decks out there, and that's because you have the Power Plant Reset Stamp combo available, and that's why we're going to play 2 copies of this to try and reduce our opponent's hand size in the late game, try and smash them with a ReshiZard and make it difficult for them to find the answers to get around it. A couple Cherish Balls to help us grab that ReshiZard in the initial stages so we can get energies on him. We're going to have 4 copies of basically everything. Oh, sorry, we have one more 2 of, right? We have 2 copies of Fire Crystal just for reloading fires. We have 3 copies of Great Potion. Healing 50 is reasonable. Again, you can greens this and combine it with extra healing cards. Like these mixed herbs. These obviously help us get out of status as well from Blounds and from the, what's it called? Raichu tag team. So yeah, that's always nice. Even in one-offs, they can be helpful, but usually they're used for extra healing. And then we have 4 of consistency cards, 4 Pokégear, helping us get those initial greens and welders, 4 Acro Bike, again, helping us thin the deck, a move again towards the supporters in the opening turns. Always nice as well to defend against Stamp. If your hand is reasonable in those opening stages, maybe holding on to these bikes is the best thing to do, so that you can be Stamp proof against opposing players. 4 copies of Custom Catcher. This is our main means of gusting. We do have greens that can help pick these out at the right times, so in theory we're one of the easier decks to achieve gusting turns, which is really nice to bear in mind. But yeah, that does round out the trainer cards. Obviously most of them are searchable via greens throughout the entire game. That's like a big part of our engine. Greens is weaved in between welders and whatnot, so that you can go ahead and pick out these item cards when you need them. We also have a bunch of stadium cards and a Lusamine package. This is something that's kind of been picked up from Worlds. I was testing it on stream pre-Worlds actually, and noted how much I disliked Lusamine, which is quite funny because that seems to be like the most popular way to play the deck now. But there are, you know, a wide variety of stadiums that are good in different spots. For example, Shrine, very good against Pikaron specifically, so a Flare Strike gets a knockout against them. Also can just whittle things down into range of Flare Strike as well, especially with Lusamine now. You can try and get value over a number of turns and push them into range, which is pretty cool. We have 1 copy of Giant Hearth, similar to the Fiery Flint. It's just good in those opening turns to get ourselves fire energy. 1 Heat Factory for helping us draw a little bit further into the deck. 1 Lysander Labs, which is very good against Malamar players for denying spell tags. You can try and do this over and over again. Also stopping skateboards from every Jirachi deck out there right now as well is a little bit of disruption, which is pretty cool. And 2 copies of Power Plant I think is the main like selling point of a greens deck in many ways. The fact that you have a bunch of healing and this Power Plant Stamp combo is really huge right now. You can try and jam this early game if you really want to against some Dede focused decks, but also this is just so good late game against Mew 3, so good against ReshiZard in some ways if they need to Dedenne to like push their last few pieces together, or if they need to use Dedenne to like discard a bunch of fires, so their Victini Prism is very strong. Power Plant can try and deny that. Obviously both of those decks do play a high stadium count themselves, so it's not all that great, but it's something that we have to try and do alongside Reset Stamp. Lower the hand size, slam the Power Plant, and also try and Lusamine this back as much as possible in those sorts of matchups. That's how we're going to try and get the advantage on them, even though they are normally going to be out-aggressing you in those opening stages. And then Welder is obviously just a crucial card in the game right now that we're able to take full advantage of, because ReshiZard's a phenomenal attacker when we can get that amount of energy back. So that is going to be the list basically. There's not too much I want to like play around with. I've seen a few people play around with the Pokemon count. Some people have added in things like Hooper into the list. That did well in one of the Worlds lists. As another non-GX attacker that can be, you know, 1 energy pressure, which is pretty cool. You could think about adding in Tag Switch and extra switching cards, because playing only 1 switch can sometimes be a little bit punishing and something you definitely need to keep track of. And then there's the argument of trying to strip away this Lusamine line and just go like 4 copies of Power Plant and like 1 Giant Hearth, something like that, and 1 Heat Factory. Like you could go the whole hog and just have a crazy high Power Plant count if you wanted to. Right now we're going to be trying out the Lusamine and try and be flexible and have all of these options when we need them. There's also the Martial Arts Dojo build as well, which normally tries to add Energy Spinner, a couple, like 1 or 2 fighting energies, and then you can Dojo for your damage modification, which can sometimes be pretty cool. Regardless, we're going to kick off here. We are currently supporterless, which isn't great. We also have no energies in our hand, so this isn't an ideal start. We'll see, though, what we get off the top. We do draw into Fiery Flint, which can get us towards energy cards. Looks like we are up against a Mewtwo and Mew deck. We definitely want to start getting energies into play. This Fiery Flint may have to be... it's our one-off switch that I really don't want to get rid of. Stamp is obviously too good to get rid of. Mixed Herbs. See, Mew 3 will try and one-shot us the whole time. But they can also... like, here's the thing. Mewtwo can also go for this Latios kind of play, which is really annoying for us to deal with. Let's think about this. They definitely have the capability to one-shot through us, though. I think it's 2 Mixed Herbs that's got to go here, you know. Oh, I could scout with Cherish and see what other cards we have in deck. We have all of our customs. We have our other herbs. We do have our other stamp. If I want to get rid of the stamp, that could be a decent option. Knowing that we have a second one now. I guess it could be stamp and Volk that go. Okay, fine. We'll do that. We'll do that. Mew 3, obviously one of these decks that we want to try and work towards Power Plant with, but the hand is not going anywhere right now. And it may feel weird when I'm like, I'm very rarely biased against a deck and then like profile the deck anyway, but GreensReshiZard is like still played a lot and still has a lot of results behind it, so I'm trying to like understand how it can still do well in this format, because from my theory and from testing against a bunch of Mewtwo and a bunch of AbilityZard, I don't see it being a like top tier contender anymore. But a lot of people are still kind of like behind this archetype, which is interesting. It was at some point one of the best decks in format for sure, but I'm just not sure if it's past it or not really. To see this Mewtwo start off with Heat Factory, then they're going to Cherish to burn a Solgaleo so they can get some more fires out. They can Welder turn 1, so they're luckier than us by the looks of things right now. Normally, because they can play Dedenne, they have more cards that they can see to find Welder on turn 1, but they haven't required any Dedenne just yet. They're going to Treasure. They're going to grab another Mewtwo so they can take a knockout on a Volk whilst also powering up this Mewtwo in the back, which is a really powerful turn 1 for them. Getting 2 Mewtwo powered up straight away, forcing our ReshiZard active. This is all bad news for us. Looks like they're playing the Rainbow Energy builds, which may help us math-wise down the line if we're going to try and use Shrine, but there may not be any down the line. We may just be getting crushed. Obviously, Mewtwo can use the Hidden Fates Charizard-GX against us these days as well. Well, that's horrible dead draws, obviously. Any deck would feel bad in this spot. Rainbow Energy does help out this matchup a little bit because the Outrage is much more relevant damage now, but we could well just be dead to an opposing ReshiZard plus Welder. We could also be dead to the new Charizard. We could be dead to a Magcargo. We could be dead to all sorts here if they have access to another Welder. Is all well and good trying to be like a good defensive deck that can make comebacks. Oh, no Welder means we're more likely to be alive, but we still do lose if the Charizard can be discarded. There it is. There it is. So they can Hearth away the Zard, or they can Radar away the Zard. That works too. Whichever way they want to do it. Yep. Pretty sure they haven't halved. Okay. Cool. So, that's our first game against Mew 3. It's that easy these days. Looks like all the Power Plant shenanigans and stuff didn't come into play that game. We weren't able to do any of our cool tricks, but we do have, you know, 8 good draw supporters and gears and bikes, so that is going to happen not very often. But it is a small criticism of the deck sometimes. It's more so a criticism that you play so few bench Pokemon that sometimes a ReshiZard's just forced into the active where it doesn't, like, you're not ready for it to be there. Okay, for some reason someone just scooped. Let's go for another game. The scoop gets me very close to the Lily. Maybe this is the only way we're going to get a win streak going. With GreensReshiZard anyway. Let's have a look. Alright, we're able to go first. I think you still always choose to go first with the deck, even though you do have Flare Starter potentially available, because spots like this where you just start the ReshiZard. Like, if we chose to go second and you don't start the Volk, it's just so bad for you, so. This hand looks a little bit more workable, though. We have bikes and gears. So in the intro, I mentioned holding bikes for like stamp proofing, but when you don't have a supporter, you want to dig as deep as you can to try and find that. Against a mirror potentially, or an ability Zard. If it's ability Zard, healing is not all that relevant anyway. If it's a mirror, I think Great Potions are more important to take because of outrage pokes and high heat blast pokes. This draws more cards. We already have the crystal in hand. This does benefit our opponent, but we got to play it, I think. All right, let's start seeing if we've got supporters here to work with. None off the first one. Please? Okay. We're going to do the usual stuff. I think mixed herbs can still go here. I should have scouted the deck more. Let's have a look. We have one more Zard in deck. We have 3 customs to play with. We have other stamp in deck. We have Lusamine. 1 Welder, 1 green prize. That's not bad at all if we're able to take prizes. Okay. Our opponent has started a Volk, which is very scary because they can get their Charizard powered up before we can get ours powered up, which is a worry. So we're hoping that the Welder draws plus potentially Heat Factory, but that's bounced, can get us towards more Pokemon. Alright, well they're gonna Welder. 2 to the back. They can attach for turn to the active and they can Flare Starter. They're playing comms as well, so they're probably ability Zard. Yep. Oh, they play customs though. How strange. That's really strange. Ability Zard playing customs instead of Victini and Ninetales. I think one of the biggest benefits of playing Ability Zard is that you get to play Ninetales, but that's just me. ReshiZard going back in the deck. Oh, they play both? That's wild. That is absolutely wild. I'm stunned to see that, to be honest. Crazy. But this looks a little scary, as you can imagine. Okay. Let's try and thin this deck. It already feels like we're so far behind our opponent right now. It's actually crazy how far behind we are. They go 3 prizes up, like basically no matter what, unless somehow like Labs sticks or something, you know? Like this just feels all kinds of bad. Paying retreat feels awful. Attaching anywhere feels awful, but I think I attach here so I can try and poke this guy for 50 next turn. We're again supporterless, like, yeah, like, how do we win? And it's a perfect demonstration, actually. I said at the beginning of the video, how do you keep up with Ability Zard and how do you keep up with Mew 3? Yes, we've not drawn the best in either matchup, but they just, like, that's the thing. These 2 decks are so aggressive that they punish these awful starts so well. Like, they're very efficient at punishing bad starts with this deck. Pretty crazy. They're even going to bench another ReshiZard here. They basically should never do that, but it won't even matter because we're so far behind. Pretty nuts. The good news is they at least put a Heat Factory in, so I can try and draw some cards here. Okay, that's gone about as well as it could go. Let's Welder to our next guy. Reset Stamp is obviously happening. That hand is big. Do I want to Acro Bike first? Probably. Both these cards are useless, but I can thin. So we're going to try and go High Heat Blast into Flare Strike to win the game. And I say win the game, I mean like to take our first three and then like custom this up with Double Blaze if we've not been deaded by that point. Essentially, if he gusts us in the next 2 turns, though, we lose. And that's very scary when they have the potential to Ninetales and there's a Heat Factory in play. But it's what we're working with. Also, I don't have a Welder currently. Basically, this Pokégear will tell us if I need to bench this Volk. Okay, I need to bench Volk. Okay, stunning. Alright, as long as we can avoid Ninetales for the next 2 turns, we can win the game. How exhilarating. Or I could try and Crystal Factory, I guess. That's also an option. Ugh, it's such a horrible option. I feel like them benching this second Zard has definitely given us a chance to win at least. If that benched Pokemon was a Turtonator or a Victini Prism, I would feel horrible about our chances. Okay, so it is very rare that you'll face a Ninetales list that also plays customs, but still. Let's just pretend that was a Ninetales and 2 Fire Energy, please. Alright, well they didn't have Welder. We have a lot of healing available. I think we start with the Crystal Heat Factory. Play this. So we can only heal 100. That's not very good. We still get killed by a Flare Strike. How many Welders have they played? They've played 2. That's pretty bad for us. I guess in theory I could Weld to the active, see if we get any more healing, and if we need to I could pay Retreat and maybe custom the Vulpix. He then would have spent 3 custom catches and the Vulpix, which would buy us a lot more time to try and get more healing. So I guess we're Weldering to the active in both situations here. Oh, we actually get the switch, which is pretty cool. That's definitely cool. So we'll do our Great Potions now. Because all of our eggs are in this Charizard basket, that's for sure. We will play a switch. Let's use some customs to kill this, so he can't just gust us for win. I'm going to have a quick scout of this deck. I need to see how many energy we have left. Yeah, it's pretty tight for energies. We do have two mixed herbs left in the deck to play, which means we would still get knocked out by a Flare Strike no matter what. This isn't looking good, boys. Maybe it was better to hedge that he couldn't... No, because we can stamp him again. Stamp him to 1 and try and make him miss Welder. Okay. Okay, that's a pretty irrelevant prize for us. Custom pack catcher being the most important. More custom catcher. They've played 3 this time. What an odd build. I've definitely not seen an Ability Zard list like this before. It's like a hybrid of Greens and Ability Zard. So, I don't like our chances. But he turn attached. So, we have to try and stamp to 2. And hope that he can't get an energy card. I should probably try and Lusamine back the labs so he can't just easily Stellar Wish. The greening for the herb doesn't matter because we still die to a Flare Strike no matter what. I guess I play the bike first. Well, that's like a swift kick in the nether regions, isn't it? I guess we got to take this and hope that we take off prizes. Alright, we basically lose to an energy card. There has been a lot played though. There's 6 going into the bin now. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 going. So, maybe we can win. But losing to just an energy card definitely doesn't feel good. Oh, we higher rolled the customs at least. But he has promoted a Charizard. And they have an energy card. Okay. So we could have won that game if we played 4th Mixed Herb, I guess. Oh, sorry, 4th Great Pot, potentially. I can't remember what my Acro Bikes and stuff were, but... yeah, losing to Ability Zard is an expected outcome, in my opinion. Because even if they weren't going for like these Charizard knockouts, they could have Victini Prismed or Turtonated or done something. They had way too much time against, like, we give them way too much time, I think. Playing Customs and Vulpix is a little weird. We did kind of get punished for that, for them playing both. Which is bizarre, because I never thought that would happen. Hey, we're going second and we have a Volk. Nice. Alright, let's see how this goes. The matchups where you're allowed to Flare Starter are a nice benefit of this list. We're up against Gengar Omastar? Looks like it. We don't mind Gengar on the star because we normally can keep to 2 bench pretty happily. So we're probably just going to greens for Cherish Ball, Flint. See what the Acro Bike brings us. This would mean I don't need to go for Flint, which is nice. Cherish Ball's in here. Okay. We do have a lot of trainers in our hand, which is a bit worrying. It's something that we have to work on. Try and reduce that. Labs doesn't matter too much right now, but it might matter with the helmet later. What am I doing next turn? I'm just weldering next turn, right? I might still take the Flint, you know. Flint could be used to discard excess trainers from our hand to stay out of Gengar range with Poltergeist. Do I need to do that this turn, actually? He is a greens deck. He could easily greens for Custom Catcher and smack us. Let's think about this. Yeah, I think I can play it now. He does have Surprise Box, but I think we can reduce enough trainers from our hand that it shouldn't be a problem. I forgot I need to click each individual one, but yeah, that looks fine. You can already knock out the Volk just on board with the amount of trainers in our hand currently. It's also somewhat concerning that we have no energies left in our deck, so our top decks are basically always helping him from this point on because of Poltergeist. So we want to technically draw as little as possible. I guess Flint is probably the best thing you should... Oh no, Flint lets us discard more cards. He should just give us, I don't know, Power Plant or whatever. Cherish Ball's instantly burnable, so he probably shouldn't have given us that one. Crystal's also burnable if he knocks out the active. Oh, he's customing for draw. Hearths away a Gengar, Mimi. Cherish Ball. That's no good. Okay, he's gonna Horror House, buy himself some time, get himself a big hand. Makes sense to me. I can Hearth away this Cherish Ball. Make him Surprise Box more times, I guess. Unfortunately, we would just wiggle with Flare Starter. So we'll just pass. I was gonna have a peek. Oh, this cannot be good for us. If he has customs right now. Okay. No customs. Thank goodness. We could have been blown back, son. I think we should be fine now. So we really want to get the welder off the gear here. Oh, nice. Okay, so we can blow up the first guy. That's step one. Playing items is also good for us. We don't care about reset stamp because it'll lower our number of trainers in our hand. Smack this guy. Not bench any more Pokemon because we'll probably want to use trainers if we can, so I can get rid of them from my hand. Customs in hand is really good for us, so we can get an initial smack on this Gengar. Yeah, so going for a welder to the bench. Gust and smack the active sounds really good. Obviously our hand is chock-a-block with... Oh, he can definitely play a lot of healing cards, can't he? And he probably does play a bunch of healing cards. Hitting him for 30 is not very good, though. I'll do a switch in hand so I could... Okay. Yep, he's going to concede. Alright, those are some very quick games with GreensReshiZard. But honestly, I don't want to play any more of this deck. I think I've proven that it's pretty bag average in this format. I think you don't really want to see any hand-locking decks. I think, in my experience, you're unfavored against Mewtwo. Yes, you have the argument of Stamp Power Plant, but they can always use their Marshadow preemptively to defend against that. AbilityZard has too much one-hit KO potential. So I think it's a bit of a dinosaur in this format, and I don't think it's one that we'll be seeing too much of at the very high tables. Yes, it's continued to do well at Melbourne, but that was still a 127 master event. It's not huge, and I think people are finding more ways to play Mewtwo, especially now with the family Charizard, which helps them match up even further. So I think there's a lot of reasons why this archetype might be on the decline a little bit. But that's still my showcase of the archetype. That's kind of the most up-to-date build for you there. Like I said, it's a bit weird me sort of dissing a deck and playing it at the same time. I'm still trying to do my best with the list, and this is where I'm like most happy with it. But my results all point downhill towards this archetype. I would much rather use Dedenne and Jirachi with this build, but I guess if you are more on a budget, this could be the better Charizard for you. Let me know what you think of GreensReshiZard down below. There's still a big, up in the air about which Zard variant is better. I think it's pretty conclusive that AbilityZard is nuts, but that's just me. I'll hear it all in the discussion down below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in another video tomorrow. Have a good day.